You talk too much, Ailey. The line cracked through the press hall so sharply that half the room laughed before the words had even finished echoing off the walls. If you believe a man can lose control of a room in one sentence, stay with this story. And if you've ever seen pride get punished in public, subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. Because what happened next did not look like a fight at first. It looked like a smile. The hall in Chicago was packed shoulder to shoulder, thick with heat, camera flashes, and the smug confidence of men who thought they knew exactly how Muhammad Ali worked. They had seen him before, the grin, the rhymes, the teasing, the bragging that made headlines and made old men shake their heads over breakfast. To most of them, he was still a spectacle first and a danger second. They came for quotes they could sell, not for the feeling that always crept in when he entered a room, and every eye turned the same way at once. Ali stepped onto the platform in a dark suit, broad-shouldered, loose, and almost lazy in the way he carried himself when he knew he was the strongest man in sight. He did not hurry. He never did. He looked over the room once, and it was the kind of look that made men straighten in their chairs without understanding why. He sat, leaned back, folded one hand over the other, and let the noise come to him. Questions started flying immediately, predictions, doubts, jabs disguised as professionalism. Someone asked if his speed was gone. Someone else asked whether age had finally reached him. Another wanted to know if the confidence was real or rehearsed. Ali answered them the way a great musician plays notes he is tired of hearing and can still make sound dangerous, easy, funny, sharp enough to draw blood if a man listened closely. Then the young journalist stood up in the center aisle. He could not have been more than 26. Narrow face, expensive tie, hair too carefully set, notebook clutched like he had practiced this exact movement in a hotel mirror before coming down. He had been waiting, not for his turn, but for his moment. There was a difference, and Ali saw it before the man opened his mouth. The reporter did not smile when he spoke. He wanted the line to land clean. "Mr. Ali, don't you think you talk too much for a man with something left to prove?" That got a bigger laugh. Several men lowered their heads, already writing, already tasting tomorrow's headline. The young journalist stood taller, hearing the room behind him and mistaking borrowed laughter for power. Even the cameramen looked pleased. It felt, for one brief second, like he had done it, like he had reached into Ali's rhythm and broken it in front of everyone. Ali did not answer. He just looked at him, not angry, not amused, just still. It was such a small thing, that silence, but it changed the temperature in the room. The laughter did not end all at once. It thinned, broke apart. A few late chuckles died in men's throats when they realized Ali was not going to rescue them with another joke. He sat there with his chin slightly raised, eyes locked on the reporter, and the boy's confidence started slipping before anyone had said another word. Ali leaned forward at last, rested one elbow on the table, and spoke so softly the whole hall had to lean with him. "What's your name, son?" The journalist cleared his throat. "Daniel Mercer." Ali nodded once. "Daniel." He repeated the name like he was testing its weight. Then he smiled again, and by then nobody in the hall was smiling the same way they had a few seconds earlier. Daniel Mercer felt every eye in the room move off Ali and onto him, and it was the first sign that he had miscalculated. He had wanted a confrontation. He had wanted heat, volume, a flash of temper he could package into a byline. What he got instead was attention, direct and surgical, from the one man in the building who knew how to turn a crowd without lifting his voice. Ali tapped the table once with 2 fingers. "Daniel Mercer," he said again. "That your first year covering fighters?" A few men shifted in their seats. Daniel opened his mouth carefully, trying to make his answer sound casual. "My third." Ali tilted his head. "3rd year, and your voice still trembles when you stand up." That landed harder than shouting would have. A ripple moved across the hall, not laughter this time, but discomfort. Daniel's jaw tightened. He had not heard the tremor himself until Allie named it. Now he could feel it, in his throat, in the back of his tongue, in the way the notebook in his hand had suddenly become too obvious. "I asked a fair question," Daniel said. "You asked a hungry question," Allie replied. "That's different." The room went quiet again. Allie sat back and let the silence work. He had done this in rings, in studios, in hostile halls where men came in wanting to humble him and left wondering when the floor had shifted beneath them. He understood something Daniel did not. When a crowd laughs at the first cut, they are not loyal to the knife. They are loyal to the blood. And if the blade changes hands, so do they. "You say I talk too much," Allie said. "Maybe I do. But let me ask you something. If a man talks and then goes out there under them lights and makes his words come true, what do you call that?" Daniel tried to answer quickly. "Self-promotion." Allie's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it now. "No, you call that warning people." A murmur rose and died immediately. Allie pointed, not rudely, not dramatically, just enough. "You came in here wanting a piece of me. I know your kind. You don't want truth. Truth is too slow. You want a moment. You want one clean little sentence you can drag out of here and sell to folks who weren't brave enough to be in the room. And you thought if you called me loud enough, the room would make you strong." Daniel's face changed, just a flicker. But the men in the front row saw it. He tried to recover. "So confidence can't be questioned?" "Everything can be questioned," Allie said. "But don't dress envy up like honesty and expect me not to notice." That one hit the entire hall, not just Daniel. Pens paused. Shoulders stiffened. More than one reporter suddenly found the tabletop in front of him extremely interesting. Allie looked from face to face, not rushing, reading them openly now. He knew where the doubt sat, knew which men admired him in private and cheapened him in print to keep their editors comfortable, knew which ones hated the sound of certainty when it came from a man they had been taught should ask permission before taking up space. Daniel spoke again, but this time he sounded like a man trying to get back on his horse after being seen falling from it. "You enjoy humiliating people?" Allie shook his head. "No, I enjoy accuracy." It was almost cruel how gently he said it. "You stood up to tell this room I talk too much. But you ain't said one thing yet that came from courage. You came with a rehearsed line. You waited for your little opening. You borrowed the laugh. And now that laugh is gone, you standing there by yourself." The cameras kept clicking, but even that sound had changed. It no longer felt hungry. It felt nervous. Daniel's fingers tightened around his notebook. "You think nobody should challenge you?" Allie leaned in again, and the softness returned to his voice, which only made the words cut deeper. "Challenge me all you want. But when you come for a man in public, you better bring your own backbone, not the room's." By then the hall was so still that the scrape of one chair in the back sounded like a mistake. Daniel should have sat down. Everyone in the room knew it, including Daniel. But humiliation has a strange effect on ambitious men. It does not always make them retreat. Sometimes it makes them lunge again, not because they have regained control, but because they cannot survive in front of witnesses unless they try to. His ears were burning. His face had gone rigid. The notebook in his hand was no longer for notes. It was something to hold on to. "So that's what this is," he said. "Anybody who criticizes you is weak?" Allie turned one palm upward. "No. Anybody who hides behind criticism because he's scared to say what he really feels is weak." Now he stood. That changed everything. He did not slam the chair back or rise in anger. He just unfolded upward, and all at once the platform looked smaller than it had a second ago. Men who had watched him from ringside said later that Allie had a way of standing that made distance itself feel unreliable. He seemed farther away and more dangerous at the same time. The hall felt that now. Allie took one step from the table. "You want me to help you, Daniel? I'll help you." The young journalist froze. You don't hate that I talk too much, Allie said. You hate that I talk big and then live big. You hate that I say I'm great before permission comes. That bothers men, especially little careful men who were taught their whole lives to wait their turn, lower their voice, and clap for greatness only after everybody else says it's safe. The insult was not in the words, it was in the precision. Allie's gaze moved past Daniel and swept the room. And it ain't just him. That was when the hall truly changed, because now no one could pretend they were merely spectators. Allie had widened the circle. The front row felt it first, then the men along the side walls, then the ones at the back, who had been hoping to stay invisible and still leave with a story. He was speaking to all of them now, and everybody knew it. You men been saying the same thing about me for years. Too loud, too proud, too sure, too fast with the mouth. But every time I open my mouth, you show up. Every time I say I'm going to do something impossible, you buy a ticket, grab a pen, set up your cameras, and pray I fail where you can see it. No one moved. Allie pointed toward the press benches. You don't come because you hate the noise. You come because you can't look away from the truth inside it? Daniel tried one more time. He had to. If he said nothing, he disappeared. The truth, he snapped, or the performance? Allie turned back to him instantly. There it is, he said. That's the real question. He took another step, close enough now that Daniel had to tilt his head just slightly. You think because a man knows how to use a room, it means he's fake. Because when you see confidence that clean, you assume it has to be theater. Why? Because every confident man you know is bluffing. There were no laughs now, not one. Allie's voice hardened for the first time. I bled for every loud thing I ever said. I trained for it, paid for it, stood under bright lights where there wasn't nowhere to hide, and made my words answer for themselves. That ain't performance. That's accountability. Daniel's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Allie didn't let him go. You came in here hoping to become somebody off my name. That's why you took your shot. Not because you care how much I talk, because you wanted to borrow my fire and look brave for 60 seconds. That line hit like a fist. Daniel looked around the room instinctively, and that was the worst thing he could have done, because now he could see it clearly. Nobody was with him anymore. Not the men who laughed, not the ones who loved a scene, not even the ones who disliked Allie. They were all watching him the way people watch a card trick after they've realized where the trap was hidden. And for the first time that day, Daniel looked exactly what he was, young, exposed, and completely alone. The reporters near the back could hear Daniel breathing now. It was shallow, quick, badly controlled, the breathing of a man trying not to look rattled while his own body betrayed him in public. Sweat had appeared at his temples. One dark strand of hair had slipped loose across his forehead. He no longer looked like a journalist who had stood up to challenge Muhammad Ali. He looked like a man who had walked into a room carrying one sentence and discovered too late that the other man had brought an entire world. Ali saw it all. He did not rush to finish him. That was the terrible part. He let Daniel stay in that moment long enough for everybody to understand what was happening. The old hands in the room had seen arguments, insults, even tables overturned. But this was different. Ali was not crushing the man with volume. He was stripping him with clarity. You know what your next move was supposed to be? Ali asked. Daniel stared, saying nothing. Ali nodded, as if the silence itself had answered. You was going to say I dodge hard questions. Then you was going to call me arrogant. Then maybe you'd ask whether all this talking covers fear. A few heads turned. That was exactly where Daniel had been heading. Ali's eyes flashed. You know how I know? Because I heard your kind my whole life. Men who can't beat belief, so they try to diagnose it. Men who can't match certainty, so they call it vanity. Men who ain't comfortable around power unless it whispers. The room felt smaller with every sentence. Ali turned slightly and faced the wider crowd again. That's what bothers y'all, not my mouth. My permission. I never waited for yours. Several reporters lowered their eyes outright. One man pretended to adjust his camera lens for so long it became obvious. Another crossed and uncrossed his legs twice. The shame was spreading now, not dramatically, not in one great wave, but in small, private recognitions around the hall. Allie was naming things men preferred to keep unspoken. He brought his hand to his chest once, firm and flat. When I said I was great, I wasn't asking, I was announcing. Then I walked out there and took the beating that comes with saying a thing before the world agrees. His voice deepened. Do you know what confidence costs when you have to prove it in blood? Nobody answered. Allie's gaze went back to Daniel. You wanted to make me small with one neat little line, but a man can only be reduced by somebody larger than him. And son, you didn't come in here larger than me. You came in here hungry. Daniel swallowed hard. The motion was visible all the way to the side wall. At last he managed a sentence. It came out thin. I'm doing my job. Allie nodded slowly. Now that is true. For 1 second, Daniel looked almost relieved. Then Allie finished it. But your job ain't what's beating you right now. It's your motive. He let that settle. A reporter doing his job asks a question to get an answer. A desperate man asks a question to get noticed. That was the line that made several people look away completely. Daniel tried to hold his posture, but the structure was gone. His shoulders had dipped. His chin was no longer level. Even his grip on the notebook had changed. It hung lower now, not like a tool, more like dead weight. Allie stepped back toward the table, but he did not sit. You thought words were decoration with me, something extra, something for the crowd. But words are part of how I fight. I talk before the bell. I talk after the bell. I talk so men know what's coming. I talk so doubt walks into their camp before I do. I talk because fear travels faster through a mouth than through a fist. Now even the men who had disliked him most had no choice but to listen. When I say I'm going to break a man, sometimes the breaking starts before the first punch. You call it talking too much because you don't understand warfare unless it bleeds right in front of you. Nobody in the hall was writing anymore. They were just listening. And Daniel Mercer, who had come there wanting one memorable line, was realizing in real time that he had given Allie the stage and then trapped himself on it. By now the room had gone beyond silence. It had entered that rarer state, the one that settles over people when they realize they are watching a lesson they will remember longer than they want to. Nobody shifted papers. Nobody coughed. Even the men standing along the walls seemed nailed in place. The hall was full, yet the emptiness around Daniel Mercer felt enormous. Allie looked at him one last time, and there was something almost merciful in his face now. Not softness, not pity, just the calm of a man who no longer needed to prove control because control had already taken the room. Let me tell you what your mistake was, he said. Daniel did not answer. You thought a loud man is weak because loud, weak men are all you ever knew. Men who brag to hide. Men who shout because there's nothing underneath. Men who need noise because silence would expose them. Allie's voice never rose. But I was never empty. The words seemed to stop the air in the hall. Allie placed both hands lightly on the table in front of him. That's why this room ain't laughing now. Because a minute ago, he nodded once toward Daniel, thought he was talking about my mouth. But he wasn't. He was talking about certainty. And weak men panic when certainty speaks out loud. That was the line. It did not explode. It landed. And once it landed, nobody in the hall could escape what it had revealed. Daniel's insult, the laughter, the appetite in the room, the smugness, the hope of seeing Allie pulled down into ordinary size, it all looked different now, smaller, meaner, transparent. Daniel stared at him with the face of a man who understood, too late, that he had not been out-argued. He had been read. Every bad reason that brought him to his feet had been dragged into the light, where he could not deny it without sounding even smaller. His lips parted, but no words came. He glanced down at the notebook in his hand, as if something inside it might still save him. It was useless now. Allie noticed that too. You wanted a headline, he said. Now, you got a memory. A few people shut their eyes for a second when he said it. Daniel finally managed to speak, but the sound was almost lost in the room. He stopped there. Allie let the unfinished word hang. Then he straightened, smoothed the front of his jacket, and gave the room one final sweep of his eyes. He did not look triumphant. That was what unsettled them most. He looked certain. The same way he had looked when he entered, only larger somehow, as though every sentence had added weight instead of spending it. "You all write what you want," he said. "You always do. But when a man tells you who he is and then goes out and proves it under the lights, don't call that talking too much. Call it hearing something true that scares you." No one wrote that down immediately. No one moved at all. Allie stepped away from the table, turned, and walked off the platform with the slow, loose stride of a man leaving exactly when he meant to leave. Cameras rose too late. A few flashes cracked after he had already passed the first row. No one called after him. No one tried to recover the room. There are moments when words arrive too late, and everyone there knew this was one of them. Daniel Mercer remained standing in the aisle with his notebook hanging at his side. Nobody smiled at him. Nobody rescued him with a joke. Nobody gave him back the laugh he had borrowed. And as the door closed behind Muhammad Ali, the only thing left in that packed press hall was the kind of silence men carry home with them,